the comedy show where Americans in America covering American news are called foreign agents. Now, as an American, I'd be remiss if I didn't occasionally talk about the most powerful state in our lovely country, the one with the largest budget, the one people ignore half the time, and then when they talk about it, they look terrified, like they might lose their job or something, and, you know, they're all worried, and I get fired. You know the one I'm talking about? Israel. The American state of Israel. So, if you've been watching independent, outside the mainstream news, then you know that a week ago, there was an absolute massacre in Gaza. Israeli snipers simply opened fire on thousands of unarmed Palestinians, killing at least 18 and wounding well over 1,000. Videos have been released of snipers shooting protesters while they were simply, walking around or praying. But if you turned on the mainstream corporate media, in the rare moment they covered it, we had to really look for these videos, try and find their reporting on it. In the rare moment they did, you got a more vague, mysterious view of events.
The European Union is calling for a transparent investigation. This after the deaths of 17 Palestinians in clashes with Israeli troops on Friday.
Deaths of 17 Palestinians. But how did they die? Who knows? It's open to interpretation, like a Rorschach massacre, you know? It's a Rorschach-massacre. It was crazy. Nobody knows. Nobody knows how they died. Maybe they were playing pickleball and things got out of hand, you know? Maybe they ate some bad raw oysters at the Gaza 7-Eleven. They should have known. Never eat the oysters that are sold next to a hummus cannon, all right? Everyone knows that. Everyone knows that. By the way, Pepsi hummus, actually awful. Don't try it. It's terrible. It's terrible. But don't worry, CNN wasn't done yet.
Hundreds of Palestinians were wounded in the unrest that took place on the Gaza border.
Hundreds were wounded in the unrest. By what? By who? They were just wounded. They were wounded. You know, like, sometimes things just happen, like a rainstorm or sleeping with your wife's sister. It just happens. You don't know what she was slept with. That's all you know.
Its troops were confronted with gunshots, with firebombs, and burning tires as alleged terrorists attempted to, quote, infiltrate Israeli territory.
Hold on. Someone with a burning tire is a terrorist? If a burning tire causes you terror, then maybe you shouldn't be in the military, because that's a low threshold right there. He was a terrorist. He had a burning tire and a very hot coffee pot. I didn't know what was happening. Someone with a burning tire is a prankster at best, but, it wouldn't sound as good to be like, oh, we murdered a few dozen pranksters and we stabbed some scallywags. It was quite scary. Have you noticed both the U.S. and Israel use the term terrorist to mean anyone we want to shoot or bomb, but we're not, we are not defined as terrorists when we shoot or bomb innocent civilians. As the book, The WikiLeaks Files, noted about the U.S. imprisoning so-called terrorists, what the U.S. seems to have created is a global apparatus that does not so much catch terrorists as capture hundreds of people in order to find ways to label them as terrorists. So basically, the U.S. and Israel can kill or capture anyone they want, because if we kill or capture them, that makes them a terrorist. Here's the dictionary definition of terrorist. A person, usually a member of a group, who uses or advocates the use of violence and threats to intimidate or coerce, especially for political purposes. Well, let's see. You've got members of a group, check. Clearly using violence, check. Clearly killing unarmed protesters in hopes to intimidate the rest of the protesters to go home or give up. Boy, that sure sounds like the Israeli soldiers are the textbook definition of a terrorist. And yes, some of the Palestinians did have rocks in slingshots. That is true. But we threw rocks at each other in middle school, and no one ever called us a terrorist, Maybe a donkey dick or a moose knuckle or something, but not a terrorist. And there's no proof that the Israeli forces were shot at. That's just something they say every time they decide to start killing innocent people. Right before they open fire, they make sure to go, bang, bang. Did you hear that? They're shooting at us. You know, it's similar to the way the NYPD yells, stop resisting! Even after they've got you handcuffed on the ground, face in the pavement, they're like, stop resisting my boot with your teeth! This type of coverage may seem like an accident, right? Maybe the writing for CNN just wasn't very good. That anchor meant to say, quote, tens of thousands of Palestinians protested living in what the UN calls an open-air prison without electricity most of the day, without medical supplies, without enough food, without a functioning economy, and without freedom. Remember that freedom? But when they showed up to this largely peaceful protest, heavily armed Israeli troops shot hundreds of them. Maybe CNN meant to say that, but it came out as there was unrest. There was wounded. This is no accident. This is intentionally vague reporting meant to take the actual murderers out of the conversation. But when CNN speaks of the Palestinians, all of a sudden, they find their action verbs. Hallelujah! It's a Passover miracle.
The Palestinians advance, some hurling rocks with slingshots. Then come Israeli bullets and the casualties.
Then come Israeli bullets and the casualties? Like the bullets just, came. They just showed up. They were late. They were stuck in traffic, but they got there. Could you have found a more mushy, open to interpretation way to describe a massacre? Our corporate media reporting on Palestine is like a verbal M.C. Escher painting, like the bullets came and then the casualties circle around into there, Doesn't even make sense. Can't go up and down at the same time. Here, say with me, CNN. Then the Israeli soldiers shot and murdered a bunch of people. It was fucked up. Hey, that's it. Oh, I know. If it helps you understand it, you can say, then came the fucked up. Furthermore, you notice they talk about the Palestinians like an attacking a horde of Mongols. In the clip, he says, the Palestinians advance, some hurling rocks with slingshots. Da, da, da. This is the actual image from when he's saying the Palestinians advance. Look, all right, child. These are, I wonder why he didn't say, the children were skipping right at the soldiers. An 8-year-old threw a yo-yo that nearly hit a guy in his bulletproof vest, all right? Well, I'm sure MSNBC will be better. They're the lefty news channel, right?
There was some stone throwing, burning of tires, pretty standard operating procedure as we've seen from the Palestinians, but things seem to have gotten out of hand. The IDF opened fire.
Yes, things seem to have gotten out of hand. I believe that was about the time the bullets made their arrival on the scene. If things seem to have gotten out of hand, then why did the Israeli army tweet out, yesterday we saw 30,000 people. We arrived prepared and with precise reinforcements. Nothing was carried out uncontrolled. Everything was accurate and measured, and we know where every bullet landed. Okay, apparently they're proud they shot people in the back or shot women carrying nothing but flags. But then they deleted that tweet, so I guess nothing was uncontrolled. Except for the Twitter account. It got fucking haywire. It just had a life of its own. We didn't know. Well, when you can't get straightforward reporting from CNN or MSNBC, you turn to a more reliable source, a Fox News source.
This was originally called for to be peaceful demonstrations here, but they quickly did turn into violent protests with Palestinians throwing rocks and burning tires.
Okay, if they threw burning tigers, then I understand the fear. I do. That is fucked up, unacceptable.
burning tires. We understand that at least 10 Palestinian people were killed today and more than 500 were wounded.
We understand they were killed. Who knows how it happened? Maybe it was infected hangnail or maybe monkeypox. Who knows?
The Israelis said from the very beginning that any protests, and even armed protesters, will be met by force. They were trying to stamp this out from the very beginning.
Yes, it's the fault of the victims the Israeli soldiers shot. They said from the beginning they would murder anybody who walked around somewhat near them.
The situation in Gaza after the 2014 war continues to be a very serious humanitarian problem.
Oh, humanitarian problem. Who created the problem? Who knows? Even though Israel has had a crushing blockade on Gaza for years, and every time the Palestinians have some infrastructure to speak of, mysterious missiles rain down, leaving rubble in the wake. Look, I could have spent this segment on how horrific things are in Palestine or on all the human rights violations Israel continues to perpetrate with tons of support from our government and our tax dollars. Netanyahu's campaigns are funded by rich American families. The most read, yeah, they are. The most read newspaper in Israel is owned by American Sheldon Adelson. I could have spent this segment on so much on the fact that this massacre happened on the Jewish holiday of Passover, which is supposedly about standing up for the enslaved and the oppressed. I mean, it's amazing. It's amazing the sheer irony of that didn't just melt the soldiers' faces as they were. But unfortunately, I don't have time to cover all those aspects. So I focused on the language of our mainstream media that try to avoid talking about Israel. And when they have to, when they're forced to, they somehow misplace their action verbs and the pronouns become very squishy. The truth is, the Palestinian people deserve freedom and equality and self-determination, and we cannot pass over this issue any longer. Coming to you from Washington, D.C., the Belly of the Beast is Redacted tonight.